And so let's establish ourselves in a posture, as I like to say, that embodies wakefulness, that embodies dignity, that embodies your deepest reason for being aligned with this intention. And then reminding yourself that you're not trying to experience some special state, and that if you were a really good meditator, you'd instantly be able to enter that special state and everything would be like kumbaya to a very high power. But rather to recognize that the condition that you are in is insanely special already. And that no matter what you think may be wrong with you, as often happens with the patients that come to us in the stress reduction clinic, with all sorts of medical diagnoses. From our perspective, as long as you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you, no matter what the mind or your healthcare team comes up with in terms of what might be wrong. And this practice pours energy into what's already right with you. And let everything else kind of, in some sense, take care of itself with a lot of support and collaboration from our love relationships, from our family, from our work and the meaning in our life, and from, of course, our healthcare providers. And so we're not trying to get anywhere, but we're actually reminding ourselves that it might be possible to be where we already are. And that's not only good enough, it turns out it's perfect, which is why the Buddhists talk about Buddha nature. And basically, you're letting your original mind or Buddha nature or true nature or original beauty just shine forth. And you don't have to make any of that happen because it's happening all the time. And what we do is we occlude it by getting so lost in thoughts and emotions and turbulence of one kind or another. And then silence and stillness become your friend. And perhaps you can feel the entirety of your body sitting and breathing, whatever posture you find yourself in. Perhaps you can be in touch with the envelope of your skin, with how the vertebrae of your spine elevate the one on top of the other out of the pelvis and into the neck, and balancing of the head in such a way that you aren't falling forward, you're not falling backwards, you're not listing from side to side, but you really are stable. And at the same time, making yourself totally available to the domain of experience, inner and outer. The inner being thoughts and emotions and sensations in the body. That could be any of them, either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither. And that could mean real discomfort or irritation or anxiety or sadness or any infinite number of different mind states or body states, many of them quite painful, that we can wind up in. And this practice is asserting that awareness has the capacity to hold it all, or any one single aspect of it, and not be caught in any of it. And so it is a practice of immediate freedom. often spoken of traditionally as a liberative practice. When we stop self-identifying with the features of the landscape, so to speak, and begin to take up residency in awareness itself, which is a capacity you don't have to develop. We're born with it, but we're never taught how to inhabit it. And so daily formal practice on a schedule, so that you do it on a regular disciplined basis, usually at the same time. I do it early in the morning, although it's not fair to call it a doing. It's much more a being, but there's a certain kind of interior and exterior statement that you make when you stop and drop in this way into formal meditation practice. Sitting, lying down, standing, walking, including mindful hatha yoga, or some melange of all of that on a regular basis every day, as if your life depended on it, because it does, as we all know, or we wouldn't even be here today. And so I won't go into any more of the particulars at this point in time of guiding the meditation practice and how to deal with intrusive thoughts and emotions and the sort of whatever arises, and how to deal with, trauma when it arises, or, bliss for that matter when it arises. But to just know that the practice is not just trustworthy, but self-revealing, so that if you keep it up for days, weeks, months, years, and decades, in the first few decades, maybe there's the conceit that you're meditating. But after some more time goes by, you may realize that the meditation's doing you more than you're doing the meditation. And then there's just no separation between life, you, your meditation practice, the world. And it all sort of becomes a love affair with the beauty and the privilege and the fragility of this moment, fully alive, fully embodied, and in the form of you. And yet this is not an isolated just me practice, but it's a we practice, because you're not alone. And you never have been, even if you think you are. And just looking at the screen right now will show you that. And the fact that as I look, there are like 12 pages of people sitting right here, right now. Now, if we had more time, we could extend the silence out infinitely. But I want to point out that inside and underneath and in between my words, there's been nothing but silence. And in the same way as you can't have music without spaces between the notes and silence, you can't have thought without spaces between the thoughts and silence. And if we learn to recognize and tune into that silence, then there's an element of being that's never disturbed, no matter what's going on in other aspects of one's life. And in times when the proverbial stuff is hitting the proverbial fan in your personal life, or in the world, or or the threats to the planet, whatever they may be at this moment. It's very powerful to be able to drop right into this timeless present moment. And know that you don't have to be a good meditator or have all sorts of campaign ribbons on your chest or shoulders or anything like that, but that you are an important part of what we sometimes call Indra's net or Indra's network, where every node of Indra's net, which is an ancient model of the universe, is like the great god Indra's net is a web of diamonds at each vertex of the web. So it's just a web of diamonds in all directions. And the feature of this web is that every facet of every diamond reflects all the other diamonds in the net. It's a little bit like the internet in its, like, if you want to think of it in its most positive light. But it's really way beyond technology. It's just an aspect of life where it's pointing out deep interconnectivity and a sense of profound belonging inwardly and outwardly. We're all cells of the one body politic of this planet. And we all have basic needs that need to be met by the blood supply, if you will. And we also have unique elements that we can contribute to the well-being of the whole planet, the world, our societies, our own communities and health, our own individual. And it's a lifetime engagement, as I was suggesting. So then in that sense, it really is true that there's no beginning and no end to the meditation practice, even though it is essential to ground it in daily formal practice of one kind or another for really extended periods of time that are sometimes uncomfortable because we don't want to do it for that long. But if you remember it's not a doing, then maybe you can just be at home with it. And when you do take your seat in that way, the world is already, and Indra's net is instantly different because you've taken your seat. And you're at home, anywhere and everywhere. And asserting in a non-self-centered way that you're here, you belong, you're one of an infinite number of flowers, and the world needs absolutely every one of us to flourish in our own unique beauty. So when you're ready, if your eyes have been closed, allowing them to open, I'm not ringing any bells to signal the end of the meditation. I didn't ring any to start the meditation. Again, in the kind of spirit of there being no beginning and no end to the meditation practice. Sometimes we dwell in silence for extended periods of time, sometimes months at a time. We can arrange it. And sometimes we are in conversation, but the awareness doesn't have to and doesn't pretend to prefer one aspect of human interaction to another. And then dialogue, questions, conversation like this, getting together like this and inquiring together, that's as much a part of the meditation practice as sitting like a statue in the, some temple or the British Museum.